CIO Day 2023 is on the agenda. And that also means CIO of the Year award. Today's nominee, Michiel Valk. Looking forward. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is CIO TV special, and that means that we're going to talk about CIO Day 2023, and that means that it's this time of the year again, and it also means CIO of the Year award is on the agenda. Today we have a nominee, and that's Michiel Valk from Ascent. Welcome.
Thank you.
One of the 4 nominees. Excited?
Very excited.
Great. Of course, we always have a table full of industry leaders, of tech leaders, so to speak, to have a great conversation of learning, so to speak, right? To be inspired and to learn. So today, Simon, welcome.
Hi, Rob.
I've got Ruud, welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
And I've got my buddy, Mark.
Hi, Rob.
And Mark from BCG is one of the jury members. And actually, we conduct a fair, from that criteria of digital maturity, a fair assessment, a hard assessment, right? But before we start the show, can you give a little context about this whole digital transformation? What are we looking at, right?
Love to do so. So the jury looks at data from Ascent, and it's based on Digital Accelerator Index. That's something we actually research on a continuous basis throughout the year, across the globe. And this year we've again upgraded basically our survey because so much has happened in terms of inflation, supply chain disruptions, military conflicts all around the world. So we added a lot of questions on not just what kind of outcomes in your company can you achieve by digital transformation, but also how fast have you been able to act on, in an agile way, all those changes, market circumstances. And then there was another tectonic launch, which was called generative AI. So we included some questions on that one as well. Year and year again, this picture does not really change, unfortunately. Digital transformation is super hard. 70% do not achieve the goals they set as a business. So we ask, okay, have you set expectations? Did you meet them all? And 70% says partially, some of them, but not all of them. What we also see is that you do the digital transformation in order to get faster digital products, services, and being more agile. Still, we see that 80% of innovation or tech spend is not on innovation. It's still on the transformation itself, on the legacy tech. We see that there's no clear governance model in over 1/3 of companies on how to achieve those type of results they're looking for. And in the Gen AI space, we see that over half of companies are actively saying, we don't know what to do with it, don't touch it for now. Where probably their young people have a totally different opinion on whether that's the right advice, yes or no. So how do we help, basically, what we call the stagnating companies to become future-built companies? Future-built companies have proven in our survey that they're able to use the digital foundation, not just for EBIT and say market growth perspective or a number of other metrics, but really to organize quickly with the changing circumstances. And Michiel, you have a couple of those on your, and we'll discuss those later as well. So what you'll see in the data is if we now start looking at across all sectors across the globe, the companies that are future built move away from the stagnating companies at an accelerating pace, if you look over the last couple of years, on any metric, basically. And that also means that if you're now still yet to start, or you're still in that stagnating space or a beginning space, and there's a future-built company in your sector, you're in trouble. You don't have the 3 to 5 years anymore to actually transform. It gets less and less and less. Some numbers on how future-built companies outperform the competitors. And you see it's super material. It's roughly, the number to remember is 2. 2 times revenue growth, 2 times more revenue from the digital propositions and channels that they've built, almost 2 times more EBIT, and 1.3 times more total shareholder return. But that's because we look across the 5 years. If I would probably expect to see this in 2-3 years from now, we have 5 years of that. That number will also go to 2. And why is that? Because they feed back it's almost like a flywheel approach. So they have a higher percentage of say, IT or tech people that are digitally savvy, that know how to work in an agile way together with tech. It's more integrated. They're feeding more into AI and what you'll see also into Gen AI. And they're much higher, say, trust, ability, because they also control their data in a better way, to use newer tech that is on the horizon in a very, very quick way. So if you zoom in Gen AI specifically, you see that the future build companies, 65% is either planning already, hey, we're going to create value with this, but we need the guardrails. We understand it, how to make it behave responsibly in a controlled way. And 1/3 is already generating value with it. Whereas if you look at the stagnating emerging companies, that number is actually 0. And 100% of the companies are either saying, don't use it yet, because we're not able to control it, or let's experiment a little bit with it, but we don't know how to scale it. And this is massive difference, where you see that Gen AI is going to amplify, for the good and the bad, the data and technology capabilities that were already built in our companies. Reasons, finally, for executive hesitation to Gen AI is, as you can see on the slide. So why? And this is by definition, say, the stagnating or the emerging companies, and it's not a surprise. They're worried about data breaches, etc., and handling of data. Where the leading companies, the future build companies, say, we know, yes, it's a risk, but we know how to deal with that. And on the challenges, say, we don't have the talent and skills. This is a super important one. We don't know, from a C-suite perspective, who's going to be accountable. Where future build companies already have that talent base invested. So for them, it's a small natural step to immediately move into using this. Whereas for the stagnating companies, this is a huge hurdle, and that's going to widen the gap between the future build companies and the stagnating companies.
Right.
Leave it at that, Rob.
Right. We will circle later, of course, with some industry setting the scene on the topic, right, with Ascent. But what surprised me is, perhaps first reaction, Simon, if you start too late, you have a big issue, right? Recognizable?
Yes, I think so. I mean, that's really, really interesting. So my personal background, actually, just to stop on what you said there, is that I did a PhD in AI in the 90s, right? So Gen AI is particularly exciting for me. And that organizations that are, some of our clients we're seeing are working out how to use it, right? Because it's not a straightforward thing, right? You know, where do you put this thing in your business, right? You know, and it's not you buy it and then it will do the thing. You've got to work out the right place to implement it and to do it. And so definitely, I think organisations that are kind of curious and agile and all those sorts of things are finding the right places to put it in the business, yeah, for sure. And if you don't have that mentality, right, particularly if you don't have that, you know, iterative, able to be experimental, then you're going to be behind, in my view.
Yeah, and I agree. I think experimentation is crucial to really understand what can bring for benefit to my company. But I also really agree that you have to educate your people. Of course, you have talents who already, or people who already know what it is, how to work with AI, but this is beyond. So you really have to educate the people that they really understand what's behind this. Because it shouldn't be a sort of black box. Mm-hmm. You really should understand what the algorithms are doing and what are also the risks by using that. So, and I think education of people, especially in this area, is crucial, because then you can also make the connection to the value, in my view.
So let's put this limelight a little bit on Michiel, right, as one of the 4 nominees. And of course, we try to roast him a little also.
Looking forward to it.
That's part of the process, so to speak. But let's start. Michiel, your business dynamics as Ascent today, but also in the context of your role, so to speak, right? So what are the pains, what are the gains for you at this stage?
Yeah, I think everyone knows in the energy industry is really turbulent at the moment, especially since the war in Ukraine last year, the increasing energy prices. The energy has become really a high interest product. A lot of media attention, a lot of customers asking us questions. What do I have to do to keep my bill affordable? How can I save energy? So we really feel, as I said, the responsibility to help our customers to take the next step in energy transition. That's our purpose, to make it accessible for everyone, to make it affordable for everyone, but also to get the proper solution that fits for the situation of a specific customer. Because for each customer, the solution to save energy and to keep the bill also affordable, it can be different. For some customers, solar panels could be an option. For some customers, it's just about saving energy and implementing insulation, for example. And that's what we really try to achieve, as I said. And that's the reason why we also have a clear strategy for that we say we have 3 pillars where we see how to achieve that next step in energy for our customers. One is the one-stop shop, and that will be on the next picture. That we create that one-stop shop for our customers, where we really try to integrate all the advice to our customers, to give them the relevant insights, the advice about the energy consumption, and also offer the proper solution. And really in a way that is really accessible and affordable. And that working on that one-stop shop is really the integral element that is the contact point for our customers. We combine it with a philosophy, we call it we do better every day. We are really a customer-focused company, that we really understand with customer measurements what's the actual experience. We drive, for example, really with NPS. NPS in our customer journey teams is a crucial indicator to understand what drives our customers, and we try to integrate it in our improvement processes. So we always say we do better every day. Each day we implement improvements. And as third pillar, we say we take care, and we care and take ownership. We care for our people and our customers, but we also take ownership. For example, our green ambition, to make it more and more green, help our customers to consume less energy, make our energy sourcing more and more green, but also take our responsibility in society to really improve over there.
But how can you flip that? So I understand this purpose, right?
Yeah.
So if you look to, for example, some industries before, like telco or like banks today, customer loyalty is getting to a low point, right? To a certain degree.
Yeah, it depends.
Low point.
Yeah.
So if you look to that, let's say that specific, how taking that responsibility for your customer, how to help your customer, how do you do that then?
Yeah, I give you an example, because what does it mean when a product is becoming high interest? We see it in our digital traffic, because the biggest part for our customers, if they want to approach the Ascent, they do it digital. They use the app or the customer portal. In the past, we had about 2 million visits a month. So that means that each customer visits our app to look at their energy consumption 3 times a year, averagely. Somewhere once a week and somewhere once a year, depending on the profile of the customer. During the crisis, it completely flipped into 20 million visits a month, so 10 times more. So that's, of course, a complete different circumstance where we're in. Also, as an IT, from an IT platform perspective, how can you cope with that amount of traffic? How can you keep that always on for the customer? Because the customer, especially in the high interest situation, they really want to know what their energy consumption is on a daily basis. Because a lot of people really want to predict their bill for the future, because the amount of money they have to spend on energy has increased due to the increasing prices. Right. So keeping that available and keeping that always on with this amount of traffic has been really a big challenge for us.
Right. Is this one, Mark? Is this one of the critical success factors? Customer-centric insights, and then build on your digital capabilities for that?
Absolutely, but I'm super interested, because you're not only dealing with this super fluctuation on basically the energy prices, but also super fluctuation in rules and regulations our government basically puts on you. Yeah. So that would be in how quickly can you change your operating model and your service proposition. So can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, as an IT organization, it completely turned around, is what you say. On the one hand, we really had to change our digital channels, our digital platform, make it always on. On the other hand, we had to change our backend system to fulfill the regulations, like the price implementation of the price ceiling. So we had to really rethink our game as an IT organization. So we also made some bold moves there. So we really transformed our integration landscape behind our digital channel to completely cloud native. So we went away from SaaS for a SaaS solution to really make it cloud native and make it completely scalable with the amount of traffic. And on the other hand, on our backend systems to fulfill to all the regulations, we really restructured our processes and our data models for that to become faster. And still, we have to become faster and faster also looking forward. But actually in the last year, when I look at my architects and also my team, it completely flipped around. So it was really also an intensive period for us. But actually, I'm actually really proud of it because we're quite, especially when you look at our availability, it is a complete difference that it was a year ago.
That's what we call an achievement, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, that's what we call an achievement.
And Michiel, a question. So basically you're operating in a highly regulated market with even chain partners who are government controlled.
Yeah.
But the example that you gave that you would like to have give almost real-time insights in your energy consumption to your end customers.
Yeah.
That also implies that you rely on chain partners like the DSOs, like Stedin, Enexis, Alliander. How do you bring forward then the innovations if you also rely on chain partners? Because that should go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, it of course goes hand in hand. And you know, for example, you have several data streams. What are the SLAs you have with those type of partners, and you have to fill with that. But in my view, the difference can be made in UX. So about how do you bring that over to your customers, that it's really customer focused, and that the customer really understands the information that you present, but also that you give the relevant advice. And I think, as I said, there's where we make the difference, to really understand the customer need behind that.
Yeah.
Is this a changing kind of discussions you also see, Simon, in your conversations?
There's lots of that Michiel was saying there that was kind of ringing some bells. I mean, so one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, so my role is head of data, right, in EE, so I'm really interested in the data side, right, but I was thinking about how dependent you are on those kind of upstream data sources, you know, and your room to maneuver effectively is what's provided in those interfaces and all that kind of stuff. And I suppose there's a bit of me that was thinking, how does that affect your ability to meet the demands of your customers? Do you know what I mean? Because you can have, so we create these user interfaces, do a lot of kind of sort of CX stuff, and sometimes you get into that situation where you talk to all the users and they say, great, this is the thing we have, but then you can't. There is no way of getting that upstream data. Is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, we have a dependency on that one, but it's also then again to your customer setting the expectations. Sometimes a daily energy usage is not available because it was not delivered. But then we set the expectation to the customer in our channel. Unfortunately, we can't offer it, but we expect to have it in a day. And then the customer knows, okay, I go back to the app in a day. So it's also about being aware of your dependencies, but then translate it into the promise to your customer that you can fulfill. And that's what we really try to do in this model.
Right. So if you bring that, Mark, for this type of industry, right, for energy. So how hard is it to be able to work on all three elements, right? Because that's in the end what you should do, or at least what brings the desired change, I guess, right? Both in your operating model as well as in your business model, both in your organization model as well in your tech approach, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Well, how hard is that?
It's super hard. And one of the, say, data points we have underneath, we ask companies, so your vision, your purpose, and basically is that interwoven with digital? There's no difference anymore. And the future build companies, they score like 90 out of 100 or 95. But there's also a question, and how well defined is your roadmap? Where you sequence between your elements, Rob. So you can't just do customer first or just do operating model first, so you need to sequence. And I don't like the word prioritization, because in the end you need to do everything, but you can't do everything at the same time. We consistently see that roadmap scores 20 points lower also for future build, because that's hard. That's where all the senior execs kind of conflict with each other. So, yeah. So, Michiel, how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, that's a fine question. And on the one hand, what we really try to do when you look at all the innovations, all the requests that we have, and sometimes they're conflicting, we have an integral portfolio process, we call that. So we really have all the business leads on one table to prioritize together based on value what innovation goes first. And then, of course, we have the horizons. Some innovations you're quite sure that it will deliver value. Some innovation is more in the experimentation phase. For example, in smart energy, with connected devices, it's more about experimenting and understanding what will be the business model of the future. And based on those horizons and the expected value, we as a group in the portfolio process make decisions and then decide what goes first. Yeah. And that actually works out quite well. We use the SAFe methodology, I think well known, Scale to Agile framework, and that really helps us in structuring priorities and also executing them in our agile transition agile teams.
And if you basically decide on an innovation that you would put on your roadmap, which has a dependency on your chain partners, I can imagine that the partners, the chain partners, are, if they're government controlled, they are probably subject to all kinds of additional legislation. So do you also foresee that even though you are aiming for an innovation, but that's impeded by the legislation which is applicable to your chain partners, is that sometimes also the tension that you see?
Yeah, you can't predict the future. So I could say yes or no to you. But currently we take that as a boundary, that we know there are things happening in legislation, there are things happening with our chain partners, and you try to work in scenarios. Yep. But what we really try to do to keep that as assumptions, that we say we expect this, and based on this assumption, we go for that scenario. So because otherwise, you also have to simplify your decision-making process. If you don't take all those dependencies, then it's going to be really difficult to make a decision. And we also have to have speed. Otherwise, because we see in some the urgency in the market to improve the customer experience is really important for us. So we also have to make decisions based on those assumptions to come to execution.
Right. So you wanted to talk about your topic of choice, about how do you work with partners in an ecosystem, right? Among other things, how to align on goals and win-win. So we touched base a little on that, let's say that stakeholder management from an internal perspective, but I guess that from an external perspective, that is a serious discussion also about your ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
So, Mark, can you give us another shot here?
Yes.
To setting the scene.
Similar slides, but now for you. So let's go there. The slides are not showing yet. Yeah. All right. So here we go. In our power utilities sector. So if we zoom in that sector with the same study, you see the difference between future built and stagnating emerging companies. So interesting numbers. 2.5 times revenue growth, being able to offer that through digital channels. 2 times cost reduction, so being able on the operating model side to apply digital to becoming much more efficient and effective. The other thing that I really thought was super interesting is the average return on investment on AI. If you look at the slides, future built companies 4 times more. And this is obviously causing that accelerating effect because you're digital, you have access to more data, you can do smarter things with it that you feed back either into your customer or operating model propositions. And that is causing the accelerating effect. If you then look at some outcomes that we specifically test, so for example, concept to launch, we do this in your Horizon 1, 2, and 3. Future built companies roughly twice as fast. And the time frames are really important, of course, in your industry. We've separated asset building from basically the provisioning, etc. So this is the average of that. So I'd expect you can go even faster if you're future built. The amount of products you actually create on real customer insight. So not just a push, we think we know what the customer wants and needs, but actually we rigorously test that all the time, also 2 times. And then you were already giving the example, say the amount of digital traffic you have, etc. I mean, it's a 4 times difference. If you look at the sector globally, in lots of sectors, we simply see that Asia has a higher digital maturity. That doesn't mean that all the concepts are copyable to Europe. But if we simply look at energy, digital maturity went up now 9% or 9 points in our accelerator index in the last 4 years. That is not the highest, as you can see. We have a couple of sectors that go much, much faster. Also, the average score is 56, which is, I mean, there's lots of room for IDs, innovation, etc. That's the conclusion out of that one. And then power utilities is actually coming from far. It has been a quite traditional industry for quite some time, and it has now been fully disrupted by all global circumstances. So we expect to see more and more acceleration, which also means if you're leading now, you're the one that's going to accelerate away from the pack. So that's a nice future to look at. We also see that in the number of, if you look on the right-hand side, power and utilities is the lowest bar. The number of companies that are actually future built, so achieve that score, is only 7%. We have other sectors where that's much, much higher. So it also shows that being a first mover, getting to that position, is really going to pay off. And then finally, we didn't do the Gen AI in this one, Rob, so we're going to keep it at this one.
Right. Well, this provides some insight, but how is he doing?
I know, you know, and Michiel, you'll know after the jury session.
I was really interested in that answer.
There's one guarantee you have, is you're above average. Otherwise, you would not be sitting here.
Thank you. Okay.
That's the cliffhanger, ladies and gentlemen. That's the cliffhanger, all right. Looking to that, Simon, I think what you will see is, if I will listen carefully, is that it's also about getting that advantage by not starting only early, going into massive digital services, digital products. And that means going massive in big data and AI, right?
So you're talking to the converted about data and AI. Okay, I mean, that's a great question for me, because, and what's interesting is, so you've talked about customer. I think in there you talked about customer is just generally, it doesn't matter what sector you are, the customer really matters. And customer is very data dependent, right? Understanding what your customer is doing, understanding what your customer, how they are, creating those kind of data pipelines so that you can find out about your customer is very important. And that's definitely one that we work with our clients on, and we hear a lot from clients, and it's a big thing. And the thing about that customer data as well is that it's typically all over the business, right? It's not. I don't know if you have the same problem, Michiel, but a lot of organisations, particularly the more complex ones, it's very hard to get that single view of a customer, and that's actually in many cases not achievable. It might be a North Star, but it's a lot of effort to do. But definitely, to understand your customer and what they want, so for things like recommendation engines, all that kind of stuff in retail or whatever, you need to have those data things in place, and you need to have a good platform for doing it. You're talking about being future ready. For me, future ready in data is, when I say a platform, I mean it's you have the people and the technology and the processes that allow you to create new data products easily and quickly. That's really important, I think.
Right. So if you bring that back, Michiel, so looking to the discussion, so what actually did you do in that transformation to start with? And why I ask you this is because suddenly it appears that Ascent is also being watched by E.ON as being a front runner in a couple of programs you're running, right? Yeah. So what did you actually do here?
Yeah, I think it's about really looking what's happening in the market, really understanding what does the customer want and what are the dynamics, and that's really fast translate into action. I think, and that's where we really show our excellence, and also is where E.ON is looking at us, that we have, for example, an activation room, where we really look at how does the customer buy our products and how can we improve the conversion and how can we improve how the customer experience in that. And that's our rooms that comes together with all the people in the chain and decide on a weekly basis what to do and optimize it. And that amount of speed in learning and data-driven, based on the data that's available, that I think also that's why E.ON was looking at us, that how we do that is actually quite fast. And I fully agree with Mark that as a utility, we should even go even faster, because I have a telco background, for example, where I also saw things that moved faster in some areas, so we can learn also from other industries. But in general, I think there we really are strong as a company in moving fast and understanding and using data in that area, but translate it into action and learn again from that.
Right.
It's action, learn, and that's really a model that's and also a culture, because it's also a cultural factor, a culture of really doing better every day. I said it in my introduction, is really a part of our culture.
Right, but that means that you need to enable both from top down, but also from bottom up processes and
train your people in it,
right,
because it doesn't go automatically. So really change. We call that our Ascent Business System, where we really train our people And
Right.
yeah, how you do that.
Right. Now, it would be easy to ask you about what does then the role of your ecosystem of partners, for example, will mean for you. But I ask it.
Yeah. And what you clearly see is an emerging trend of defining business-driven KPIs towards your suppliers. Rather than eventually, irrespective of whether you're an IT business partner or even a subcontractor, you should have one specific topic in mind, and that is delivering business value to your end customer. So rather than being assessed on SLAs and compliance with SLAs, you clearly see that organizations are moving ahead and really involving them in the business strategy. What business value are you going to deliver by providing your services, rather than sticking to stipulated service of SLAs and stuff? What is actually helping me in order to get a competitive advantage or competitive edge or optimization in my organization? So that's really a shift that I'm seeing over the last couple of years even.
What does it mean for a shift within Wipro then?
To be really considered as a strategic partner rather than an IT service provider, moving up to the decision-making processes on business level, really to add value rather than simply providing your services on a daily basis, thinking ahead, what additional value can I bring in order to help my customer further and embrace new innovations. That's basically what is going on.
So how important is that shift within your ecosystem? So not only a physical shift saying partner in, partner out, but how important is that transformation also within the ecosystem of suppliers?
Yeah, we know that we can't do it all by ourselves. You need the knowledge and skills and solutions from our partners. So the connection and the strategy, I fully agree. That I feel my responsibility to really share in all openness our strategy, but also our doubts and concerns. That you also see what are our problems and you can connect on that one and offer me solutions or even sometimes surprise me with initiatives. That really helps me in executing my strategy. And that is, from my perspective, the responsibility to be really open.
Right.
And not try to, of course you have SLAs, but not try to make it sort of, to put it on a sort of distance and think about the demand supply.
Right.
But really try to have an open conversation.
So we've seen a shift, Mark, in the traditional, let's say, tech push much more now in a market pool, right?
Yes.
So what does it mean from a stakeholder management perspective as Michiel, as CIO, CDO, CTOs today from the demand side? What does that mean in terms of how those ecosystems should evolve?
I have another question first, Rob, if I may.
You need to pee or what?
I don't need to pee. No, but on the previous topic, and I actually would like to ask you to debate. I mean, your strategy is super clear. Your data-drivenness is super clear, yet you're coming from an organization that used to run on experience. This is how we do things. So how have you banned experience in favor of data decision-making? And would love to get the same answer from you, if I may, Rob. Sorry for taking
That's why you're my buddy.
Yeah, I think when you look at what the dynamics in the energy markets, it's also being a wake-up call. You have to act, and that also means you have to have new behavior. And also really use data because the availability is there. And if you don't do that, then you're going to slow down and you're going to be on the right part of your graph what you show. So that's the reason why we really, or the left part, sorry. But it's really like the urgency in the market made that even our behavior really changed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also say what you already rightly said, embrace all the best practices and experience from your partners. I mean, organizations similar to Ascent have also probably gone through a similar process. So why don't you then also absorb all the knowledge which has been gained by your business partners? Because you're not alone and you're not supposed to reinvent the wheel on your own. Leverage the existing knowledge among your business partners in order to accelerate your own innovations as well. That's what I would say.
I agree.
Thank you. Rob, back to your question. Now I have time to think.
So I think it's a really interesting question, and how people respond to the data is very interesting, right? You know, there's lots of different kind of psychological things, factors at play. As an example, I'm just thinking of one quite recently where we did a piece of work that was dynamic pricing. Okay, right. So you're changing the pricing of these things, and there were two different groups in the organisation because of mergers and stuff, right? Who set prices for things, right? And one group really loved tool, right? Found it really was great, it's fantastic. They really took to it, and it's really helped them improve their kind of, their revenues and their margins effectively. There's another group that is much more reticent, much more, it's much more reticent about using that tool. And that's, and so we're having to do a piece of work with them around, right, okay, why is it coming up with these decisions, right? What is the thing? You have to be able to explain to people why a decision's been made. It's not fair to do it otherwise, right? But I think it's a really interesting question, it's a really interesting question, how that happens, and what the right response to it is. Yeah.
Thank you. Your question.
Great for that interference. Back to the question.
Now I had time to think about it.
Yes.
No.
Regular consulting guy.
That's how it works.
So here's a perspective that Rob and I actually tested on a large number of parties, whether they're tech providers or service providers in the market. But I think we're going to see a massive change from an industry that was built on lock-in, whether that's maintenance lock-in or data lock-in into platforms, etc. So trying to pull the client into their service or into their platform, into a much more open collaboration where actually the data, we call that business management of data, is owned by the customer full stop. It's unallowable to have that locked into any provider or into any platform. It needs to be open, needs to flow horizontally. Simon, to your point, everybody in the organization somewhere in the value chain that has a legitimate use should be able to access it through data products. And I think that's going to massively change the ecosystem, where my personal perspective is that any provider that sticks with the old model of longer-term lock-in stable revenues is going to lose out.
I fully agree. So, because if you as a customer feel locked in with a partner or a supplier, then you really try to do what can I do to become less dependent from that one. So I fully agree that suppliers also should be aware that you have to be flexible and you really have to prevent a sort of lock-in, but have an open cooperation. And if you deliver value, then the relationship will remain. And if you don't deliver value, then there's of course of consequences for the relationship.
But do you go as far as having those conversations with your ecosystems of partners, also looking to that full chain of let's say, those value journeys where you want to have, in the end, a digital proposition to your customers, right?
Yeah.
Is where you would say, we're going to have a different kind of contract here. We're going to talk about a result-oriented contract. And you even may have a bigger piece of the share or a bigger piece of the pie, so to speak, if this result is happening, right? Are you into that area of conversations with you?
Yeah, I'm that open to my suppliers for example, we have a KPI called digital NPS. That's the KPI where we measure the experience of our customers on the app and on the customer portal. So that is really our digital front end. Our suppliers, partners are really aware of the score on this NPS, and really are also, we discuss that together. What can we do to improve that, for example? And I expect also an active behavior with suggestions how to improve over there. And sometimes, of course, we have tough discussions, because if they don't deliver, of course, then you have it's not always baking good cookies. Sometimes you have a tough discussion, but also if they really perform and really deliver and really are fulfilling our strategy, then I'm also very open in giving them a bigger piece of the pie. Why not? Because they're adding value to me.
Right. Is that essential in this game? This end game, so to speak, Mark. Is that from a demand perspective and supply perspective, that we need to pop up with new kind of value, business outcome-driven contract types in the market?
I think so. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at your business is going to go through a more and more real-time feedback loop from your customer to yourself. So it would be very strange if you don't have a similar feedback loop between you and your ecosystem.
Yeah. And I really agree. And of course, I also like result-oriented contracts, but don't make them too complex, because then you get all kind of legal things about. So really have to make it also fill it in a pragmatic way.
Right.
Because if you connect it to bonus and malus construction, then it's going to be complex, and that sometimes slows it down. So really think about how can you formulate a contract that serves the purpose, but also is not so complex that you really only discussing about the terms and conditions.
And even though I said probably you see emerging business-driven KPIs being formulated, which will be cascaded towards your IT service providers, and it's not an easy job to really formulate it as well, because I mean sometimes you simply need a party to run your business, to keep the lights on, and how is that then translated back to business value? That's sometimes difficult, but you see that more and more organizations are contemplating about it. How are we basically making the conversion? But I agree, it's not a purpose on itself. It really needs to open up also from a strategic point of view. What is the role that my partner is going to play in my overall strategy from that perspective?
But and how hard are those kind of also cultural changes then? Huh? So I had the pleasure of having a couple of times conversations with Azim Premji, and I know what he means with the end game with his customers, right? But how hard is that cultural change you probably would enforce on your ecosystem then, right?
Yeah, but I really agree that it is a cultural change. But also for me personally, I try to set an example. So I really try to set an example when I have my conversation with my suppliers, and my people from my leadership team are also there. I try to set an example in that openness, that they really see, hey, you can be open, and we really can share our concerns, etc. And in my view, that's where it starts. If you set that example also in how you cooperate, then your people will follow, and also the partners will see, hey, this is a different style of working together, and then it starts growing. It's also it's a relation. It has to grow with the right.
Could you define your leadership type?
Yeah, it's for me. It's about setting the example. That's already what I said. So I'm really aware of the fact that people look at me, and if I work towards a sort of goal and have a sort of behavior, people will follow that. So that's really important. Be really transparent and honest. Transparent about how people behave. Transparent to stakeholders. Also to be transparent to the business, that they know what they can expect from you, but also opinion about what they do in marketing, for example. Be transparent on both sides. Expect that. And also, dare to take bold moves. That's also my. I told you in the energy crisis, if we didn't take some bold moves, I don't think we would be at the place where we are now. So, and that's also in the background in my former CIO roles in other companies. I'm ready to take bold moves, and not by just going blind and just jump, but really, sometimes, if you make a bold move, you come in a new way of, in a new atmosphere and a new situation where completely new things will happen, and that's for me also one of my points.
Is that essential to drive these kind of big transformation programs? That type of leadership?
It is super essential, and I think you need different type of leadership in the different phases. But the common denominator is that the generic program management or leader or CIO, like my people will figure it out. That's gone. You need to be able, and I'm super interested how you do that, to actually be able to check if the road that you set out is working and whether people understand that. So that requires a leader that is generous in giving energy and time, but also checking in terms of content.
Right. Does it make the conversations easier, Simon? With these kinds of...
Oh yeah, absolutely, it does, and for all sorts of reasons. I was just thinking, that business and technology is so intertwined now, right? And it's so hard to specify. You can't specify a piece of work and then expect someone to do it. You have to work together. There genuinely has to be a partnership, and it's really important that you have that kind of open communication. And that you're not locked in from your side, right? Because you don't always know where it's going to go, right? But I think it's that for us, that style of leadership really, really helps. It makes it much easier to deliver something of value where we are working. I mean, our organisation, we have our names equal experts, and that's because our people have 10+ years experience. We don't have juniors, right? We're all seniors, and so we think that means that we can have very good conversations with you. And they'll come back, my data people have great ideas about stuff, and then they can bring that to you, and that will help you develop your thinking and all that sort of thing. And it's very much a partnership. And so you can only really do that well if you've got somebody like Michiel here.
But I understand in a previous discussion that we were with 200 plus years of experience in the IT industry at that table at that time. That doesn't help you, right? So sometimes you stated it, is that seeing the movie got a T-shirt will not always bring the change at the table, right?
Yeah, that was my previous question as well. So experience is nice, but nobody can claim 20 years of Gen AI experience, for example. It doesn't work anymore. So I think data combined with a very clear strategy and roadmap trumps experience in unforeseen circumstances.
Right. So what does it mean in terms of building all those competences rapidly? Because there is that rat race then, right? So at the one hand, you need that competences, right? Yeah. Or capability, so to speak, right? And therefore the competence too. At the other hand, we have this problem, right? So how do you emphasize on that, Michiel?
Yeah, I try to answer your question and check if I answer.
It's a difficult question.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. That's the reason why you feel me a bit now in doubt if I'm really answering your question. But also a bit pick up your remark about also understanding what's happening. So if technology, sometimes you have a lot of buzzwords. Do you really understand the technology? For me, it's really important to sit also with the development teams. We call that Go Gembas. Really understand how are they developing this solution? What are the impediments? What can I do as a leader to help you to solve that impediment? But also see what's the potential for technology and how it's actually used to a bit demystify it. Because for me, and again, I know we have new developments, we also have a long experience. Sometimes we too much mystify all the beautiful technology developments, and then people from the business really think, whoa, what he's talking about. We have to try to demystify it and translate it into things that really can help our customers or help our business stakeholders, but also really understand what are your teams doing and really talk with the engineers. And for that, I fully agree that as CIO, you really have to understand the technology. If you're only saying, I'm giving you resources and go fix, you have to have the dialogue together to understand how it is applied, and then you learn. I really learn a lot from that. Especially, I learn the most when I talk with my engineers, because they explain also without all the management talk how it really works, and also what technology doesn't deliver. So that's really I really like.
Yeah. And also not just the technical, but the practices.
Yeah.
Right? The practices that the engineers build together, right, are often a really important part of your ability to deliver, I think. True.
But even Michiel, if you set a direction and you say this is the way to go, and we would like to embrace new developments, new technologies in the market, which will help deliver business value, augment our proposition in the market. How do you then basically do the capacity planning? Do you have the right skills in-house? Do you have the right availability of people who can basically turn it around and make it a real innovation for your organization, rather than having only the conceptual idea without really converting it into in proper action? How does that work in practice?
Yeah, it's two parts. On one is we really, if we select a technology, we are really looking about is this skill available in the market? Because sometimes you can choose a real beautiful technology, but if there's no one out there in the market or in your organization who can apply it, then it's going to be really tough. So in our decision making about technology, we really look at also the availability, and it's also about continuously training our people in the new technologies. We are now completely training our people in cloud core technologies to really understand the potential of cloud and automation and those kind of practices. Yeah. So it's also about continuous training.
Yeah. Right. So to wrap it up, what is the absolute do or don't in regards to this whole digital transformation, speed up processes in the context of partners and ecosystems?
Yeah, what I already said, please keep the door open for your partners to bring in new innovations. Don't impose or stipulate boundaries in which you need to operate, but embrace their experience and ideas that they have gained as industry peers or somewhere else in the world, which will help you to steer up your innovation level. That's what I would say. Yep.
Simon?
So much to say there, but I'll start with one that I very much agree with that. But another thing is that kind of, let's talk about data platforms and that sort of thing, which is a big part of my day-to-day world. don't get yourself locked into a contract, right? You know, we like the idea of a steel thread, right? You prove out your technology first before you're locked into any kind of agreement. And what that any steel thread, by the way, is it's an end-to-end small piece of value, and that will prove out the technology and surface any kind of, you get all weird sorts of challenges like, you know, infosec problems, and you can't show that to this group of people and all that kind of stuff. That's a really good practice for avoiding you getting locked into a technology that you don't want. It's not helpful.
Right. Mark?
The best way to build those granular tech and data capabilities, also your people capabilities, is not doing proof of concepts or let's just try, pick the use cases that really matter, that are company critical, and use those to develop those capabilities. Obviously, that could be a little bit scarier, but what we see the Build for Future companies do is do the big bets in order to develop the leading capabilities, because then it's for real.
Right. And of course, to your peers, Michiel.
Yeah. I think it's mostly about set the example and connect to your customers, connecting to your stakeholders and connecting to your suppliers. Really, as a CIO, set an example that to building a trust relationship and really understand what are the needs and also the potential of technologies. And also in the following, dare to take bold moves. Because then you change really your business model and then you make also the change that's necessary.
Go where no one has gone before, right? Yeah. Be bold. Thank you, gentlemen. It was.
You're going to cut this one out.
Yeah.
I think so.
We're going to cut this out. Do I have anything to announce? Yes, of course, that's CEO Day. That's on the agenda. November 21, Studio 21 in Hilversum. Looking forward to that. Do I have to say anything else? No. Later.
Dank u, dank u.
Dank u.
What if dreamers never became doers? Where would we be if limits were never tested? Who says we shouldn't challenge what's possible? Or leap without looking? What if humanity's biggest questions were inspired by one thing? The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. What's your ambition?